Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Major Garrett. A special counsel has been appointed to oversee the investigation into President Biden's documents handled when he was vice president. This morning, before the special counsel was appointed, I spoke with Republican Ohio Congressman and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan for this week's episode of The Takeout. Here's part of that conversation. There's been a disclosure of another batch in another location. Yeah. Does that trouble you?
Well, again, I think there's tons of questions. Where's the raid? Where's the pictures? Where's the special counsel? Some have called for that. What is a batch? No, it's more than one document. Is it two? Is it 2,000? How many more batches are coming? Where is the second location?
Does it matter to you these are relevant to his term as vice president as opposed to president?
Well, I would think that would only add to the weight of it. Because? Well, because the Supreme Court's been clear, the president is the person who has the ultimate ability to declassify documents. The vice president can handle classified material, obviously, because of an executive order, so he had them. But I do think, 6 years, were these documents at the Penn Center now for 6 years, or most of that 6-year time frame? So, again, there are tons of questions, but the White House doesn't seem to have many answers right now. You mentioned the word raids. I well recall when the search warrant was executed at Mar-a-Lago, perhaps you, but certainly other Republicans said there shouldn't have been a raid in the first place. Are you in favor of raids in matters like this, or are you in favor of not raids? I didn't say that. I just said there's an obvious, it seems to me.
What's your bottom line on that? Should there be raids, or can this be handled differently? And should it be handled differently?
I think what I'm saying is the double standard, I think, is starting to become evident. We've seen the double standard time and time again. We saw how Hillary Clinton's, when she had classified material, how that was handled versus how it was handled with President Trump. My understanding, from what I know, is President Trump was working with the Justice. He let the Justice Department come down and go through Mar-a-Lago. They said lock stuff up in this certain room, put a padlock on it. He did that. So he was working with them. I just see the double standard as the concern. I think
what do you think the standard should be? Classified documents are serious matters. They should be handled appropriately. But what should the standard be? I understand the point you're making about a double standard. What should the standard be? How should this be approached from the Justice Department's point of view?
I don't think they know. I mean,
what do you think? Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it should be consistent. So you tell me. So look, you got classified material. Let's treat it in a consistent fashion. That's what I'm saying. And this is part of this overall concern so many Americans have. I've heard it from constituents all the time. They're sick of the double standard that they see out there. With how conservatives get. You can pick your example. Look. We just had this debate on the floor yesterday. The FACE Act, which says that you can't restrict someone's access to an abortion clinic. The Justice Department has said, it's on their website, that applies to crisis pregnancy centers as well. But we sure see a double standard here because there have been over 100 crisis pregnancy centers and churches attacked in the aftermath of the leak of the Dobbs opinion. And to my knowledge, no one's been prosecuted. But yet you had the gentleman outside of Philadelphia, Mr. Houck, Mark Houck, whose door was kicked in, who was arrested in front of his wife and 7 kids for praying in front of an abortion clinic. That sure seems like a double standard. So what we want is consistency, equal application of the law, and it's frankly why the Republicans have set up this committee to look at
which we will get
how there has not been equal application of the law from our Justice Department.
You can catch my full interview with Congressman Jordan on The Takeout at our brand new date and time this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on CBS News Streaming. Or, of course, you can download it on Apple Podcast. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now with more on reaction to Congressman Jordan and other conversation on the Hill today in reaction to this somewhat consequential, and I say that guardedly, it was very consequential, appointment of a special counsel in the documents matter and President Biden. Scott, good to see you. What's been the overall tenor and tone of Hill reaction?
Overall, the U.S. Capitol is at its political equilibrium, where it likes to be, with both sides accusing the other of double standards, both sides accusing the other of hypocrisy. That is the default position of the Capitol, and today that's what you're hearing. I spoke with the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, Major Michael Turner of Ohio, who says he is asking the Director of National Intelligence for a damage assessment of these records, those in Delaware, those at the Penn Biden Center here on Capitol Hill. The top Republican on the House Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers of Alabama, is asking the Department of Defense to do something similar to assess possible damage. Then you have the top Democrat in the U.S. House, Hakeem Jeffries, and Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, both saying these two things are not alike. From what's been reported so far and what's been revealed so far, they argue Biden's attorneys, the president's attorneys, seem to have voluntarily notified and surrendered possibly classified records to the National Archives. In the Mar-a-Lago case, they say there seemed to be a defiance of the archives by the Trump team, a disregard for orders to hand over records, which necessitated a raid and the seizure of those records. The raid is how then President Trump characterized it. The seizure is what the FBI has characterized the August 8th move at Mar-a-Lago. So you have Washington's default position. Two sides accusing the other of hypocrisy.
Scott, let me, with your indulgence, play soundbite from the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, on this very matter earlier today. Let's both take a listen.
They knew this has happened to President Biden before the election, but they kept it a secret from the American public. He goes on 60 Minutes, criticizes President Trump, even knowing what he has done, and he wasn't president at the time. Now we find another location that it's at, but he refused to answer. His press secretary won't answer the questions. You watched them leak photos of sitting out files of President Trump. Where's the photos of President Biden's documents? Where are those photos at?
Scott, as I'm sure your ear caught, my ear caught the Speaker basically saying we'd like to have leaked photographs of the president's documents, even though leaking those photographs was bad for President Trump. Similar to my conversation that you just heard with Jim Jordan. Are you for raids or are you against raids? There does seem to be a little difficulty in both sides resolving what they're actually for or against in this matter.
Yeah, and to clarify, the photo of the records seized from Mar-a-Lago were not leaked. They were part of a federal court filing. Correct. That was necessitated because of the length of the investigation. They weren't leaked so much as they were publicly posted and released for the courts to look at. Here's the thing, and there's really no way of getting around this, Major. This new U.S. House majority, which is trying to get on message out of the gates and trying to push through a first wave of legislation they say they campaigned on, is, first of all, completely distracted and off message in getting questions about George Santos. We'll leave that aside for now. But now facing the prospect of moving this records issue involving the president to the top of the queue and reorganizing their priority list. That's what they spent this day talking about. That's what they spent this day answering questions about. This is not what they expected, but they are very much gravitating toward this issue zealously, Major.
And, Scott, I'm really glad you clarified. A leak is not a leak if it is part of a disclosure in a court filing. That's exactly how the photo emerged. And Jim Jordan asserted to me that the president, the former president, had been cooperative with the Justice Department. Clearly, the Justice Department did not agree with that, or there would not have been a search warrant executed at Mar-a-Lago. Those two facts are crucial to all this. And, Scott, from your vantage point, we're going to have multiple committees trying to get some jurisdictional piece of this document story, true?
Yes, and if the committees had organized in the U.S. House, which they have not yet, there'd already be hearing dates and announcements out there of the next big public spectacle into this, the next big public hearing before TV cameras. But there's also going to be some turf wars here, Major. You can see it happening already. There are different committees that may claim oversight. There's a Judiciary Committee. There's an Oversight Committee. But also, there's this newly approved House Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, which is this amorphous, potentially enormous committee, which Jim Jordan might also be leading. Expect there to be a lot of toes stepped on over the next few months on this issue and many others.
Scott, you might be interested to note, I asked Chairman Jordan, would he be the chairman of that select committee? He said, well, the speaker hasn't decided. I said, he certainly indicated as much. He said, well, I'll wait for the speaker to say that. I also, and people can hear this either on the podcast or watch it on Sunday, a lot of questions about what that select committee would do and wouldn't do. And I think it is fair to say, based on Jim Jordan's direct answers to me, they're still sorting that out. But he seemed a bit cautious on this very large question about whether it will involve itself or attempt to involve itself in ongoing criminal investigation. Scott, as you well know, that's been a concern raised by Democrats, right?
Yes. What's more, there seems to be this effort to match or make a match with the January 6th Select Committee, as if Republicans want to have their own. Some of the language in the bill creating this subcommittee matched the language creating the January 6th committee. But Major, Democrats say they won't boycott this the way Republicans did the January 6th committee. They don't want Republicans to have the ability to unify and synchronize a message and choreograph public hearings.
When the roll is called, Democrats will answer. Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much.